John, thanks for your time. Let's talk about what we read in the report and also the fact that the minister is not resigning. First of all, do you accept the fact that he is not resigning, even though he says he's taking responsibility?
No, I don't accept that he's not resigning, and saying that you're taking responsibility without actually, having any consequence isn't taking responsibility. Look, the minister knowingly took this proposal to cabinet, knowing that it was wrong. He supported it, asked his colleagues to support it. And that proposal was really essentially about, a small handful of well-connected people, in an $8.3 billion cash for your land scheme. So the minister bears responsibility for that. We have, something called ministerial responsibility. It's how democracy works. And, him not doing that, it's not right. The longer this minister sticks around, the more this all sticks to the premier.
Okay, let's talk about Mr. Amato for a moment, because essentially Clark left the process to his chief of staff. That's coming from the Integrity Commissioner, also from the AG. How unusual is that?
I've been in government for more than 15 years, about 20 years. I worked in ministers' offices. I worked for a premier's office. It doesn't work that way. And just going back to it, the minister took something to cabinet and knowing that it was wrong. And for that reason alone, he should resign. And the idea that Mr. Amato, political staffer, a rookie chief of staff, was the mastermind behind this and is the sole person responsible for it, it's just not believable. And if you take a look at the Integrity Commissioner's report, it's 166 pages long. You just look at how many connections there are throughout government, and phones that are missing, texts that are missing, emails that are missing, and it looks like, I think from what I see and I can pull out, is that all roads seem to be leading back to the premier and his office.
How much authority does a chief of staff typically have, though? Are they assigned projects of this nature and allowed to sort of carry them out on their own?
Yeah, they're to bring it to the minister, and the minister's to ask them the tough questions. The minister's to give them direction. At the end of the day, the chief of staff does not vote at it at cabinet. The minister takes it there and says, hey, folks, this is a rock solid proposal I have here. We need to support it. That's what Steve Clark did. And he knew it wasn't rock solid. He stuck his head in the sand, and, either it's like gross negligence or he knew what he was doing. Take your pick. They're the same. So okay. He needs to resign.
The Integrity Commissioner says Clark wasn't aware of the process. He says the evidence also affirms that. Do you believe that the minister didn't know what was going on? Because you're implying here that he did know that it wasn't a solid process, but that he misrepresented what was there.
Well, the Integrity Commissioner said he put his head in the sand. And look, Steve Clark is a politician who has 40 years experience. He's smart, right? Why did he stick his head in the sand? He knows it doesn't work this way. Why did he bring it to cabinet knowing that, as he's saying right now, he was unaware of it? I think he knew that what was there wasn't good, and he brought it anyways.
Previous to the circumstance, I'm just wondering what Clark's reputation has been at Queen's Park. What is he known to be?
I know Minister Clark straight up. I am surprised at what's happened here. It's not what I know of Mr. Clark. It's not about him. It's about what he did and taking responsibility for that. And how whatever opinion we all have of him, or whether we like him or whether he's a friend, it's inconsequential. Right now, something happened that was wrong. The minister did that, and he needs to take responsibility by taking the consequence, which is stepping down from his job or having the premier remove him.
Okay, let me ask you, because you say it's not about him, but really it is. I mean, it's a personal decision for him on what to do here, but he's also backed by the premier, so he doesn't have the initiative to leave the job. And from what we've heard and understood, he is somebody who could stand up and be counted, who would get the job done. He is the kind of politician known to deliver. So what has happened here?
Well, look, I firmly believe that all roads lead back to the premier. So, one of the things that we can point out is the last two chiefs of staff who are embroiled in this affair both came from the premier's office. One was a policy advisor in the premier's office before he worked for the minister. And the second one was appointed by the Premier's office. So the Premier's office is connected to this. And so I'm not surprised that the Premier is backing him. The reality is he did something that was wrong. It's very clear. The Integrity Commissioner said that he did it. The right thing to do is to step down so we can have confidence in government. Otherwise, this will continue to dog the government day after day after day.
Let me ask you, if we take a step back to the mandate letter, which is the letter the minister would have received to say, here's what I want you to accomplish in the next few months, the next year of your job. Could he have pushed back on the Premier to get more time to accomplish what was set out in that letter? Because we know a lot of the criticism here comes from the fact that the process was rushed.
Well, I think that the mandate letter is being a little overread, because what it said is essentially establish a framework, like build something around this. It didn't say make the decisions. It said, look, we've got to do this, so we have to figure out what's the way we're going to do this. And they didn't actually figure out what the way that we were going to do it in a meaningful way. They just went and chose land with really no process. And the Auditor General confirmed that. She said it wasn't a process. It was more like an exercise or an activity. So I think, to say that the mandate letter was the cause of the minister, putting his head in the sand in such a big rush is, I think it's reading too much into it.
Okay, let's have a listen to something else the Premier had to say. We'll come back in a moment.
I want to continue making sure that the lands that we took out of the Greenbelt, people start building on them. The builders need to start moving. I can't stress it enough.
So clearly the Premier wants full steam ahead on this project. It sounds like contracts are in place. Would a reversal on the Greenbelt development project start costing the people of Ontario money if contracts have already been signed and would then have to be reversed?
Well, look, the government, all the toothpaste is out of the tube. They can't pack it back in. It's not going to work. And it does expose, the Ontario taxpayer to more costs in this reversal. The reality is a small group of people influenced government. They were well connected. And they as you said earlier, they won the lottery, right? They won this $8.3 billion lottery. And their connections to the Premier and to the party and to this whole process, they're just too much. It's not right. It's not fair. Ontarians are taken advantage of, and in reversing these things, they could be taken advantage of again. The Premier should have done exactly what the Auditor General said, which is just return the land to the way that it was. She asked him to do that. He didn't do it.
So what would you have happen here? The contracts, if they do exist, to be terminated, and the Greenbelt development sites that were listed to go forward returned, and we know that also the Premier allotted another chunk of land to be added to the Greenbelt to offset. Would that then reverse as well?
Freeze everything. They don't need this land to build the homes that they need. Their own task force told them they had the land already in cities. The thing that we need to do right now is to get to the bottom of this. And we've asked the Premier to do two things. Bring this to a legislative committee so all those government officials and ministers and deputy ministers and anyone involved in this can come forward. Waive cabinet privilege. We want to know what happened to cabinet. We need to get to the bottom of this before we do anything. And so my suggestion would be just stop everything and let's get to the bottom of this. And the quicker that the Premier does this, the better.
John Fraser, good to have you on the show, sir. Thank you very much for your time tonight.
Thanks, Marla.